Good afternoon, colleagues. In light of the current guidance, members are required to wear face coverings during the meeting, but they are not required to wear face coverings during the meeting. But the advice is that they should consider doing so where they are able to, unless actually speaking. Also, to reduce the risk of airborne transmission of COVID, we will take a break at an appropriate point in the meeting to allow the room to be ventilated. Tea and coffee will be available during the break. Can I also remind members to switch their mobile phones off, please? Please remain standing while my chaplain leads us in camping prayer.
Those who do not wish to participate may use this time to quietly reflect or leave the chamber to rejoin us on agenda item number 2. Let's pray. Almighty God, we come before you and we ask that you would give wisdom to everyone in this meeting, Father, for all the plans that are to be decided on. Father, I pray that everyone will know your heart and which way to go. Father, I pray for safety over our town, over our city, over the surrounding towns, Lord, as we're going to discuss this period. I pray that every household, Father, will know your blessing. Father, we thank you for Madam Mayor, and we pray that you will continue to give her strength. Be glorified in all that we do, Lord, and I pray again, may the name of the city shall be called, the Lord is there. Amen. Amen. Please be seated.
Agenda item 2 on the council summonses to receive disclosures by members of interest in matters under consideration. Will members declaring an interest please identify themselves and their particular interest clearly and complete the usual yellow form before the end of the meeting. Are there any disclosable pecuniary interests to be declared? Are there any other significant interests to be declared? Are there any other interests to be declared? No, thank you. Agenda item 3 is to receive and confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on 27th of October 2021. Are these minutes moved?
Move the minutes, Madam Mayor.
Are the minutes seconded?
Second the minutes, Madam Mayor.
All those in favour? That is carried. Agenda item 4 is to receive apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have been received in advance of the meeting from Councillors Carrington, Councillor Farrer, Councillor Hs2, Councillor Wakefield and Councillor Tully. I have also been informed that Councillors Patnell and Garber will be leaving the meeting early. Councillor Akbar, Councillor Womersley and Councillor Hayes may also be leaving the meeting early. Are there any further apologies? Councillor Isherwood.
Councillor Richard.
Councillor Isherwood.
Councillor Richard.
Thank you. Are there any further apologies? Sorry.
Councillor President.
Councillor President. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is to deal with such announcements as I may desire to lay before Council. Colleagues, over the last few weeks I have had the honour to lead the district in a heartfelt act of remembrance, welcomed a number of new businesses to the district, spent time with the Deaf Youth Council in Wakefield, unveiled a number of blue plaques for deserving individuals from the district, represented the district in numerous services, namely the annual service to remember those who have lost their lives in the district's roads, various winter concerts, pantomimes and a number of civic parades and services hosted by our mayoral colleagues in the region. I have also spent some time with the High Sheriff of West Yorkshire, who invited me to his annual judges' dinner, and then last week we both presented the long service staff recognition awards at Her Majesty's Prison in Wakefield. Finally, thoughts turn to the festive season. Please do join me at the carol service, which will be taking place on the 15th of December at Wakefield Cathedral, starting at 7 o'clock. My consort and I would also like to wish you all at this moment in time a happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year. Finally, members, as I mentioned earlier, just to remind you, in order to comply with guidance, we will need to leave the room around about 3 o'clock for ventilation, but I'll make that announcement at that time. So that concludes my announcements. As there's been no deputations being received for today's meeting, we're going to move on to agenda item 7, which is the leader's report. Once the leader has presented their report, she will answer any questions from members on the matters raised in her report. A maximum of 30 minutes will be allowed for her to report, followed by 30 minutes of questions and answers. Councillor Jeffrey, please present your report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't seem to find my notes. Has anybody been to Diggerland this afternoon? It is Christmas after all. A bit of good news, supporting social care during winter, and Councillor Cummings has been working through the House with this. And on Monday I received confirmation from West Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership in recognition of the enormous pressure existing in the social care system. £12 million has been made available to enable the health and care system to bring forward the uplift in the national living wage for independent sector social care staff in West Yorkshire from April 2022. Further work is also underway to support the wider needs of the sector, including recruitment, training and career development. I think you'll all agree that this is absolutely brilliant news, and it will enable us to keep our workers working in the health service and not going out for more lucrative jobs, where they're much needed, working for us. Of course, there's been the Hs2 announcement. In Wakefield, of course, we were celebrating. We didn't celebrate too loudly because the rest of West Yorkshire were absolutely devastated that Bradford didn't get its rail station and Leeds weren't getting the things that they were expecting. But what I think is sad is that over a decade, people have been waiting for this result. People's lives have been disrupted, homes have been sold for less money, and the money that's been wasted by this government, and then they finally decide, after 10 years, they're not going to do it. I do welcome the investment in the mass transit, so we'll see what happens about that. I was pleased to open the Islamic Phobia Conference, Light Babes, a fortnight ago, and what it was great was that in our district we're addressing this issue. There's no place for Islamophobia, any other religious motivated hatred in Wakefield, and I thought it was a really good thing that we were doing. And it's really good to see that the COVID memorial trees are now been planted across the world. People will have somewhere to go to remember their loved ones. In October, I visited 3 glasswork companies in Nottingham to talk about the energy-intensive industry that they're struggling with the costs. And I have written to Boris Johnson, and I was pleased actually that I got a reply. And he said that government officials would be happy to work with our companies in Nottingham. So I thought that was a really good progress. So we'll see. But thousands of jobs will be lost in Nottingham if we don't do something about the energy costs. And finally, I'd like to mention that Jackie Ferguson is now Maureen Cummings' deputy, and Jess Carrington has stepped aside for the moment. Jess isn't too well at the moment, and we've asked Jackie Ferguson to step up until next month. And that concludes my report. Oh, sorry, I kind of wish everybody a happy Christmas. I know it's early, and I'm sure I'll see all of you again, but let's hope we can all have a much better time than we did last year.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Are there any questions or comments on Councillor Jeffrey's report? Councillor Stansby.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the report, Councillor Jeffrey. Yeah, we're also very pleased that HS2 has been cancelled, but we do look forward to having improvements to our service, which is much needed. I'm grateful that you went to the Islamophobia Convention, and hopefully, you may see some members of your group who are actually part of the Islamic religion shortly. And just to send best wishes to Jess, please pass on our group's regards and hope she's feeling better soon. And we just wish everybody a happier Christmas than last year, hopefully, and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanchez. We shall now move on to agenda item 8, which is to receive written cabinet reports in accordance with Council Procedural 11.1. Cabinet members have up to 5 minutes to present their reports, and there are a further 15 minutes allocated to enable each cabinet member to respond to any questions or brief comments on issues raised within their reports. Councillor Henry, please introduce your report to Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In moving my reports, I'd like to draw members' attention to agenda page 16. As if we hadn't enough viruses at the moment, the Council's animal health team is currently on high alert, watching out for cases of bird flu with animals in the district. This is following several positive cases around different areas of the country. The numbers are still very low, but we're asked to remain vigilant, and if you or residents in your areas spot numbers of dead birds or waterfowl, we're asking that you report them to DEFRA or me telephone number in the report, or direct to the Council's animal health team, who will then do that for you, just to make sure that we are allocating sites in any case of potential bird flu. Just want to conclude my report by also extending my good wishes to everyone for the festive season, and particularly to our staff who are going to be working along call over the Christmas break. We know they're working incredibly hard, and particularly in refuse, gritting, wood departments. They will be out there working and not enjoying time with the families, as many as will. So, just to put on record our thanks to them. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Any questions or brief comments on Councillor Henry's report? Councillor Stanley.
Thank you. Just to say that the extra waste collection, garden waste collection, was very well received, and thanks to all involved. Residents really appreciate that.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor.
Could I just ask on the bird flu situation, are there robust inspection regime in place? I'm thinking about turkeys for Christmas and stuff like that. So, do you know if there's a robust inspection?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I can confirm that it's been treated very seriously. There are strong measures in place through DEFRA and through the Council. We do have emergency planning arrangements if we were to get cases in the Wakefield district. But I think it's important to cause alarm at the moment. It's not confirmed any food chain. This is just an early precaution asking people to remain vigilant. But I will of course update parents if there are any cases in our area or impacting on residents.
Councillor Pickersgill.
Jack, I'd just like to say thanks that we're going ahead with the extension to the cemetery, which is filling up around the country now. I know we've got enough to last us to August, but I think we will struggle if we have any more. Yes, let's get to it next week.
Yeah, happy to look into that, Madam Mayor, and make sure we're doing as fast as possible. That we're a people in hand. But we are confident we've got a plan in place, but perhaps I can work everything on burning and just provide further assurance.
Thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, we'll move on to the next portfolio of children and young people. Councillor Short. Councillor Short, will you please introduce your report to Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In moving my report, I want to give a great deal of thanks to all the staff involved during the Ofsted inspection. We won't get the result of that till January, but hopefully we will get an indication about how we've come along our improvement journey. And I do really thank all the work that's been done by staff during the time. I would also just like to mention that the parent care forum. It's fascinating to listen to the parents talking about how much we support and help them looking after their children. And they are really, really true heroes to us as we move forward. And with that, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, especially the staff who I'm sure will be working extremely hard. It's not a time when we can't actually rest over the Christmas period, but I wish everybody here Happy Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Short. Any comments or big questions, Councillor Short? Councillor Hayes.
Can I just ask the councillor on your school attendance update, did the work at Sandal Magna get finished on the 27th of November and have the children gone back to school at Sandal Magna?
No, unfortunately, there has been another delay, so it's a matter of a few weeks. But it is, the children are attending school, they have temporary accommodation, which is very good, and we have no concerns raised by the school at this time. So it is, although it has been delayed by the scaffolding, removal has been delayed, it will be just another couple of weeks after the original date.
Can I just ask, have you been given a date when it might be complete?
It's going to be completed in January.
Thank you, Councillor Short. Any further comments or questions, Councillor Short? We'll go on to the next agenda item, which is Councillor Cummings. Councillor Cummings, will you please introduce your report to Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In moving my report, just a couple of things I'd like to mention, and that is the nights are getting colder, and we have actually opened the shelter once up to press, and I'm sure we will be opening the shelter again as the days progress through December and January, but we will keep members informed on that. I just wanted to update people on the benefits campaign, which we did over the last couple of weeks. Very, very successful. I will be bringing a report with the outcomes of the benefits campaign, but indications are that only 600 people came to seek advice during the 11 days, and up to press we have reclaimed over £97,000 in benefits for some of those people that actually attended. The final thing I'd like to next to final thing is thank you for those who attended the White Ribbon Day tree planting. I think it was really good that we marked White Ribbon Day, so thank you for those people who came along. And I too would like to add my Merry Christmas and Happy Healthy New Year to officers and to all members within the chamber today, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Cummings or any comments? Councillor?
Thank you, Madam. Just a comment if I may. Agenda base 38, like a real space of antisocial behaviour in the park and around the market area. So I do welcome the action that's being taken today to put that down. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Rowley?
Can I just say on the benefits item, we were really busy at St Swithun's Community Centre in my ward on the day. It was obvious that a lot of people didn't know their entitlement. I suppose my major worry is the people that didn't come and are still failing in their entitlement, and somehow we need to publicise it a lot more. I know it takes a lot of organisation. All the agencies were there, it was well supported. We had many people, as I said, into the building. I was shocked with some of the conversations of people who were living on such low incomes and yet entitled to more, which even then would still be on low incomes, but it's considerably more. And we just need to keep doing it, don't we? Because poverty is getting worse.
Yeah, if I come back on that, you're absolutely right, Olivia. We publicised it to the best that we could. We put out over 2,000 leaflets. We did push it out through social media. We will be doing it again in February. We do plan to do it again in February. And we've already been promised funding to run it again next year. And I think the people that come will tell somebody else, who will tell somebody else. So I'm hoping that next time we do it, we'll get many, many more people that need that help coming through the door. And just to come to your point, David, the reason I put this into the report is to show that we are actually doing work around antisocial behaviour. We're trying to actually tackle antisocial behaviour across the district. So I'm glad that you welcome that in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Moving on to Councillor Graham's report. Councillor Graham, would you introduce your report to Council, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to highlight in the report a couple of things. First off, the Light Up Festival that we've been doing right across the district. Just a massive thank you to all of our partners and to elected members for promoting these light ups. I think it's been absolutely fantastic to see such pride and right across our district of our amazing buildings right in each and every town. And just sort of a response to some people who've asked, can we have something in our town? This year, we obviously can't afford to do every single location, but we will definitely be looking at next year, changing it up and adding it in different places, as we did from 2019. So I'll make sure there's a really good spread and that everyone can access it. But I think everyone would agree, Wakefield Cathedral, when Still came to the city, was just absolutely breathtaking. I've heard so many fantastic comments about it, and one that really warmed my heart of a woman who, she works at a care home and a lot of the elderly residents couldn't get there to see her, so she was live streaming to the care home, and he said it brought tears to their eyes. It was that magnificent. So happy with how that went, and a big thank you to everyone who organised that. And another thank you to library staff as well. I think libraries have been really hit during COVID. We haven't seen as many people coming through the doors, but they are starting to recover. We're having people come back into them. Football's increasing, and people are starting to really take advantage of the fantastic activities that we do there. One that's highlighted in this report is the Tiger That Came to Tea. I was very happy to go along there and visit, and as you can see, read a book with two very lively young children, which was really fun. But just fantastic. It's not just Pontefract Library, it's all our libraries and community libraries and little leisure libraries, etc. that do fantastic jobs, so thank you. With that, Madam Mayor, move your report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor. I must admit it was an absolutely magical experience seeing the cathedral. Are there any questions or brief comments for Councillor Graham's report? Councillor Cummins.
Yeah, I just want to say the cathedral was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I'm hoping that we can get that back next year. But the Heritage Action Zone on agenda page 45 with a picture of yourself and Councillor Byford, I believe that's, we could have a catching competition on that particular picture.
I would say definitely not. I think Councillor Byford would win. He said it was called the Westgate Queen, was it? Yeah, I think let's keep the caption name competition behind closed doors.
Councillor Gordon.
It was just in your report you mentioned that 42 additional children have been enrolled on the Learning to Swim programme. I just wondered how many are still on the waiting list, because we know earlier in the year it was over 2,000. I just wondered what progress has been made towards tackling that point. And additionally, the second point was just on the Aspire Kids Club. I think when this previously was rolled out, we had a question I asked at full council previously, how we were reaching sort of difficult to reach families in areas that aren't immediately on the doorstep of the Aspire Park. And I just wondered if that had been taken into account when we were trying to sort of reach out to people to take part in that scheme, and how we are going to make sure that people who wouldn't otherwise have access to those services can.
Thanks, Councillor Gordon. Two really important questions. Firstly, the programme at Aspire. I know that you made comments last time about how we actually reaching the families that need this and how we get them through, and a lot of work is being done through Margaret's team and Children's of making sure that the right people are targeted. From your feedback, I've already gone back to the officers and challenged them and said we need to do more. I say we need to do more. Looking at how many people are attending, it's absolutely superb. But in terms of making sure, are we reaching those? And I can say that work is being done. I'm happy to provide some more detail to you through an email. In terms of the swimming lessons, as you know, I think you've written to us a couple of times about this, and it's extremely important to me. Swimming is a life skill, and we need to make sure that every single young person in our district has that skill. Extremely important, especially given what happened earlier this year, the tragic losses that we had. Unfortunately, the swimming numbers in terms of the waiting list doesn't seem to be going down, and it's the same pattern right across the country. Because of the impact of the pandemic, we are struggling to get the numbers down. But what I can reassure you with is that we have hired 5 more instructors, which is double the capacity of what we can offer to people. So hopefully that will bring it down. but rest assured, I'm not just leaving it at that. I'm asking questions every single meeting I'm in about what more can we do. I've been given options, and hopefully very shortly we'll be giving you some more answers as to how we're going to tackle that problem.
Councillor Hayes. Councillor Hayes, did you have your hand up?
I'm sorry. Can I just say thanks for the invitation to the opening of the Spire on Saturday. I appreciate what's gone into that and what's available to the public. You mentioned in your report 11,334 Aspire members, probably produces something like £300,000. Does that make a significant contribution to the maintenance on the facilities?
Thanks, Councillor Hayes. I think any time we have a swimming pool within our leisure facilities, we do have to subsidise it. So obviously we have a lot of income from Aspire membership, but anywhere with a pool really does eat into that. So the membership that goes into Aspire, it is absolutely fantastic at the minute. So many people have signed up. Our Aspire membership right across the district is as high as it's ever been, and I think it's 43% of those memberships or at Aspire, which is just fantastic. But does it sort of totally meet the running cost of that facility? No, but it never will. We will always have to, as a council, put some funding into that to help it run. But I mean, what an absolutely outstanding facility. I'm so glad you were able to attend, and it was an honour to open that on behalf of Denise. Even though the plaque said Denise in March, and it was my company in November, which was a bit embarrassing. It was a really good event, and to see all those different groups around the facility showing us how things work and what they're getting from it. I can't tell you how proud I am that was able to be delivered by this council through Councillor Jackie Spade. It really is the jewel in our leisure facilities plan, and I really want to see more of that type of facility across the district in the future.
Councillor Farmer, did you have a question?
It's not a question, just a comment. Very well to you, Councillor Graham. Thank you very much for shining a light on our heritage, especially Gossip Town. It looked fantastic. And hopefully next year, as we fall them down, then we'll get the same again. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Just a comment. Perhaps one of the ways to alleviate the swimming problem would be to build a pool in Ossett.
The next report is the portfolio of the regeneration and growth and property. Councillor Boyd Fife, would you please introduce your report to council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to highlight some of the things that we're doing in this rather large and wide portfolio, based around three themes really. Supporting residents with energy debt funds, with big heat amnesty, housing enforcement by working with private landlords, managing money, helping control debt and avoiding homelessness. And again, working with residents to employ their opportunities for employment and skills, to kickstart, step up our employment hubs, and of course our adult education service. We're also working very closely with businesses, as we've been doing throughout the pandemic, and will continue to do so. We've currently got grants available for businesses, small businesses, to look at upgrading their digital assets and to change the way that they do business. We're also looking at the Art of Engineering showcase event that we had with our colleagues over in South Kirby. And we're continuing financial support through these difficult times. But we're also at a rather good equality event for business with a rather inspiring speaker that was held at the Hepburn a few weeks ago. It was a very good opportunity for businesses to come along and see what equality is all about, but also to have a great networking opportunity. Our focus is simple. Let's help everyone in our district, whether they be a resident or a business, increase employment opportunities and give residents safe, warm and secure homes. But before I finally move my report, I'd just like to update Councillor Farmer, Councillor Holbrook and Councillor Taylor in regards to Ossett Town Hall. And I'm pretty confident that it will still be standing next Christmas for your lights. But I did update the ward members after last council, as I said I would do, and we're still on schedule with the timetable that I gave you. So fingers crossed with the following wind and a good new year and no snow and no really bad COVID and no Brexit issues and no supply chain issues. And I can keep going, but I won't.
So you're not doing it then?
We should be on schedule with a photo opportunity for everybody in schedule. Thank you.
Any questions or brief comments of Councillor Farmer?
Thank you, Councillor Barker. That's great news, but to be honest, I don't really hold my breath. Since the Cabinet passed it 3-4 years ago, a suggestion I could give you to actually is why get all your Cabinet meetings in Diggerland, and you could actually help get your home to a lot quicker than what we actually are. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would Councillor Byford be surprised if I were to tell him that Mayor Brady has said that she wants to use the gain share funding to pay off debts on borrowing that she plans to do? Does that concern you at all?
Yes.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Hayes.
On the question of finding employment for people, I'm presuming you're encouraging people, if they've got the inclination, to go into self-employment. In the case, what I've discovered with people that are willing to go into self-employment, there is difficulty with young people setting up business accounts. Have you taken any steps to get the banks on board to make provision for providing business accounts for people that want to start? What seems to be happening is that they're having to, people that can't get a business account are having to get financial services from the independent sector, and they're getting charged large amounts of money, and this affects their competitiveness in the market.
That's a very valid question, and I'll come back to you with a report on that in the very near future.
Thank you, Councillor Byford. Moving on to Councillor Morley's report. Councillor Morley, will you introduce your report, Councillor, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, on agenda page 59, Cross Square, where we pedestrianised that, I was really pleased to see that done. Madam Mayor, that was where businesses came to us asking us to do that. I think it's gone down really, really well. We'll put some more improvements in there next year. Light some of the trees will make it look a lot nicer down there. And we're looking to do this around the district where businesses would like to see more pedestrianisations, 12 cafe culture, 12 bars, Wood Street, the bottom of Wood Street, an ideal location to talk to businesses down there a couple of weeks ago, so that's what we're moving on with. We're also about to launch a consultation on the A61 through the Wakefield district about how to improve traffic flows around there, improve the buses for bus travel, so that's something to account for that consultation. Finally, yes, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Christmas, but let's also be important to the council's workforce and everybody out there who will work in this Christmas all be on standby. We've been emptying bins, doing the gritting. It's all something that takes them away from their families. Let's always keep that in mind on there. So with that, we'll move right forward and have to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Any questions or brief comments on Councillor Morley's report? Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just to say a massive thank you to Highways for delivering our brand new school crossing at Snakethorpe. It's an absolutely huge school and so many parents had concerns about this crossing, but hopefully with these new improvements we'll see everyone feeling much safer in the area, so a massive thank you again.
Councillor Fishery.
Thank you for your report, Matthew. And obviously we've received the residents, the businesses, Sorry about that. I was just saying thank you for your report, Matthew. And so obviously businesses in town have commented to me about the improvements. I would just like to put forward to the council a little bit of a road safety campaign in the West Yorkshire district. In Aubrey alone, 2.5 weeks ago, we suffered a horrific road traffic accident that resulted in the death of a young male. Also as President, and obviously witnessed at the scene, and it's quite horrific. With that in mind, we get together and put some kind of road safety campaign forward. It's come to my attention from many, many residents in my ward, and possibly yours as well, that speeding and malicious joyriding and motorcycle use is becoming adult behaviour. And I think it's something we need to push forward as a council and get the message out there that not being to accept this. Please can we be supportive on that going forward. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Yes, I mean, you raise a valid, brilliant point. It's something we need to work with West Yorkshire Police and the Combined Authority and the new Mayor and the Deputy Mayor Policing. At the moment, any interventions with the Safety Partnership has to be down to statistics, and without having slight, serious or fatalities being there. The Deputy Mayor for Policing made people assurance that needs looking at, it certainly does. We need to be putting more interventions in our wards, not just speed cameras, there needs to be all sorts of interventions, whether it's 20-mile-an-hour zones, whether it's chicanes, whether it's speed zones, we need to do that. I think we need a complete West Yorkshire approach to that, with the police support and what we want to do. So yeah, very valid point.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, just regarding Zebra Crossing, we're having, further to what Councillor Fishman said, we're having a problem on Station Road. Is it possible to meet with you ASAP to sort out an example of this Zebra Crossing on Station Road in Oxford, please?
Always have to meet, we'll always look at locations. It's not always possible to put a crossing in, depending on sight lines and everything, but we'll always have to look at different locations. You know, Councillor Taylor, we met in Oxford, met with you previous this year's two locations in Oxford, so we always have to do that, depending if we can physically get there. It's not always cost, it's going to physically get the crossings in.
Councillor Graham Isherwood.
I totally agree with the speeding up and down the district and a lot more antisocial behaviour and all trying to sort it from outside. But to a successful operation of any description, we need one body to be active, and that's the police. And we're certainly not in Wakefield district getting the support from the police that we should do. I mean, it came to my attention 2 or 3 months ago where the biggest part of the police in Wakefield district were out shoving leaflets through doors. Meanwhile, they're getting as towns and villages smashed to smithereens and no police, and just shoving. We're trying to resolve that, but I understand once the Christmas period starts, we call it Operation Moscow, by the way. And it's a fancy title for a leaflet operation. But that really needs sorting out. It does, I mean, with our towers in the road, smashing the roads up, where's the police? Putting leaflets through doors. Well, how can that possibly be right? It just can't be that. So I think as a full council, we need to be getting the zest together and really putting pressure on these people. Thank you.
Councillor Keith.
I mean, I fully endorse what I was going to say exactly what Graham said about the police. We do need high-profile policing and to stamp out this joyride, which I think is taking place in your ward. It took place in my ward some time ago where we had a fatal accident. And thanks to the highways, Matthew is 100% right. It's not just speed cameras, because we know that you've got to have quite a few fatalities to become an accident black spot to qualify for a speed camera. And the residents don't always like bumps and chicanes and what have you. So we are going to have pretty good debate with those who are planning that this year to have a zebra crossing so people can at least cross the Barley Road quite safely. Thank you to the highways for that.
Councillor Gordon.
It's just in terms of the conversation we've just been having about the police and what isn't and isn't been done by them. I echo the sentiments that have been shared in terms of what can more be done to stop instances like this on the roads. And we've had a number of incidents in the recent weeks and months, including 2 people who've been drunk or drunk driving. Obviously, there's very little we can do about that. That's down to the individuals taking those things, those bad choices into their own hands. What I would just make is we are going to have the West Yorkshire Metro Mayor who does have a responsibility for policing, so perhaps it's probably something that can be discussed and directed to her rather than something that we don't actually have power over ourselves.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's following the same sort of theory, but it's important because they have been into our ward in Airedale for the first time the police leafleted straight after they came from Rundle. And my understanding is that they actually got back that 2 of the main issues were speeding and were antisocial behaviour. And, you know, we all know that. What I would say is 2 things, and I think this is important, really important. We have a good local relationship with local police. with PCSOs and with the sergeant who was there. I don't want to get anybody into trouble, but we were informed the other night that they're taking, after they've done this, and after they know that antisocial behaviour is really, they're taking the PCSOs away from Edinburgh. So we wanted a PCSO. Secondly, it's upset some of the permanent police. So what you've got is the rank and file upset. But the big get there aren't listening to all that's going on. And they're not listening from us, but we're going to keep shouting, I'm sure we're going to keep shouting. And that should come from all sides of this capital chamber. Because at the end of the day, we've been looking, I do thank you, Matthew, and the team for, if you look around there, we've had to wait and we've had to push for things, but we've got speed bumps and we've got certainly two puffing crossings that we argued long and hard for, and we've got a number of safety things, but all it's done is really shoved it into some of the other roads. And so the real key is, as Colin said, the police really need to start doing policing. And until that happens, this is going to get worse.
Councillor Moore, would you like to reply?
It was not bad having planning, highways and transportation and now we're policing as well. Adam there, choking on the city plan. All very valid points. We have going to issues that I do think Councillor Gordon is right and we'll be doing that. Putting questions towards the mayor when she does come forward. Needs buying, we do know that. I mean, in my own area myself, Councillor Hemingway and Councillor Stansby, good representing. We have one PCSO covering the whole of Stanley out with a massive area that's been taking opportunities. So we need them out there. Speed is a massive issue across this district. We need the police to play that part in it. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that. Let's move on. Councillor Stansby.
Yeah, just to reiterate, at the last PAP meeting, the PCSO, our one PCSO, was telling us of his frustrations that he would be trying to police our ward areas and he'd get a call to go over to your area, Graham, and it's other side of Wakefield, you know, and they're just, something needs to be done about that.
I think we can all agree. We've all got a number of questions that we're going to ask that are probably more appropriate for each meeting. So I'm going to move on to the final cabinet member report, which is the portfolio of the resources. Councillor Collins, can you please present your report to Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to start off by reminding members that haven't done so yet to please install Microsoft Office 365 on two machines before Friday. There have been a number of officers in the antechamber this morning, and they're also happy to offer one-to-one calls to anybody who wants one who might be struggling to install it on the machines. You just have to email the Modern Workplace email that was sent to you when Medicine sent out an email this month. Secondly, just to make members aware that the General Register Office has just completed an audit of our service and confirmed that their findings are all positive. So the security of vital documents such as birth certificates and records of registration is spot on. Staff are knowledgeable of processes and security is fantastic. Data handling was found to be really good, and we've got good processes and records in place, and I will be providing a detailed report shortly on that. The team have done an absolutely fantastic job in their preparation for the audit and keeping things running smoothly despite the challenges of COVID. I know personally, in the last few weeks, I've had to need to contact the registered service myself, and I just say they're doing an absolutely fantastic job. So I'd just like to record and record thanks for that, and just to say that they are committed to providing excellent customer service, and have already established areas where we can improve further. So I look forward to building on what we've already achieved there. And finally, just to wish everybody celebrating a very Merry Christmas and we all have a better New Year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Is there any questions or brief comments from Councillor Collins' report? Councillor Collins.
Yeah, just want to thank you for reinventing the Untitled Parish Council liaison group. We were just with some technological problems yesterday, but it was a very informed and lively meeting, and we look forward to going forward.
Any further comments or questions? Thank you, Councillor Collins. We're going to move on to agenda item 9 now, which is to consider a report which details the plain pitch strategy refresh in 2021. And I believe Councillor Graham is moving this report.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I will move the report, I'm just moving the report
just to highlight within there, this is obviously a really comprehensive, huge document. There is an easy to read section at the very back, which really makes it simple in layman's terms of what this is and what it does. And we will be providing every ward within the district with a summary for their area, so that they can really get what they need from this, and it makes sense to them. Also, just to highlight as well, within the report, we are proposing that we add a £500,000 seed fund. Obviously, this strategy covers playing pitches across a number of different sports, right across the district. And it's not just our pitches that we're trying to improve, it's others as well. So what this fund will really help do is start off some of those projects, help other people to get that match fund, and really we do rely a lot on investment from the government bodies and our partners across the country. So hopefully this fund will go a long way to providing that extra income that we've managed to provide throughout the previous strategy. So with that, I'll move the report, and I think Joe will second it as well.
Is the report seconded?
Second report, Madam Mayor.
Are there any questions in relation to the report? Councillor Gordon.
Just talked about providing a summary briefing report to members. Would it not make more sense to do that before we have to vote on it and debate it, and to get better grips to it? Because I've been skimmed it myself and tried to read through it, because it is quite hefty. I'm looking at some of these sites on here that seem to be out of date. Some of the reports that dated January 2020, but I know myself looking at that, it's not really fit for purpose, and people trying to make sort of some of the things in there, taking them into account like future demand. That doesn't really feed in and doesn't really make sense with what the council is wanting to do in terms of building loads of new houses across the district. So obviously it needs to be updated and it needs to be done, but it just feels to me like we've gone about this a little bit sort of backwards order, and that actually sort of putting this to us more broken down and then sort of trying to identify with councillors and ward members prior to us being able to sort of go and implement it in a better way to do it.
Thanks, Councillor Gordon. I think if you read on agenda page 76 and prior to that as well, it really sets out that this is a very sort of strict process and you have to do it a certain way. What I will say is that this whole document, it's not set out in stone. This is not a plan to provide stuff. It's sort of a guidance, it's a base really, and that if there are any sort of concerns across any ward or anything that members want to feed in, this isn't a set in stone plan of what we have to provide. We can work with members and we can deliver anything that we think is needed right across the district. But just for reassurance, all of the necessary procedures have been followed. It's been produced exactly the way it's supposed to be produced, and this is how it works right across every local authority.
Councillor Swift.
Yes, I think I'm reassured by what Councillor Graham has actually just said. My own concerns related to the omission of a very major and sensitive playing field, and also to the bits in the report that appeared to suggest that whether something was in or not was a material planning consideration when the issues came up about development. But thanks for the reassurance. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Keane.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's as Councillor Gordon pointed out, it's a very, very comprehensive report, and so you need to sort of read over quite a few periods of visiting it. But I welcome it because it's a start. I welcome it because it's a start to say that we can look across the district and make sure there isn't any disparities across the district. If we'd have focused on doing your own ward, and we'd have got that report individually ward by ward, we wouldn't have seen what's available across the district because, as we said, people can travel, people can move about and go and play in other sports, to get other sports in a different ward. So it's good to see the overall picture, but I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to do in, obviously, in that particular ward, and what we can do then to attract, as you said, partners to come along and do some funding with us in there, particularly in football, when I'm concerned with the FA and various other members that contribute towards any scheme. Thank you.
What this report does tend to show, from what I accept as a cursory glance maybe, is that there's significantly less facilities in the north and west of the district than there is in other areas. And so I look forward to our new swimming pool and sports facilities in Ossett and Albury.
Thanks, Councillor Mulvers. I think the sort of the easiest way to look at it is on agenda page 318, where you've got those colour-coded sort of bright areas. And I totally agree. I think Ossett is very close to the top of the list of priorities, along with the south east as well. I think there's pockets right across the district. In every single person's ward, there'll be a pitch, or there'll be some courts, or a bowling green where we think there needs to be improvements. But those areas in particular of Ossett and the south east do need investment, and the children and adults in those areas do need access to quality provision, and I will undertake to make sure we provide that.
Councillor Stansby.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I was quite interested to see that Renthorpe Cricket Club is the only cricket club that has a women and girls teams. So I contacted the manager there and just said, you know, really well done, and I just wondered if there were any plans to encourage girls and women to play cricket across the district, because you know, we've got Yorkshire Cricket Club not too far away, and you know, I personally prefer cricket to other sports, and yeah, it would be great if we could you know, persuade girls to get more involved.
Thanks, Councillor Stansby. I absolutely totally agree. I think there's a lot of clubs out there, not just taking cricket, but all across the board, who are really becoming more and more inclusive and providing opportunities for those underrepresented, whether it be women and girls, or whether it be those with disabilities. So I totally agree with what you're saying. I think we as a council can definitely play a role in encouraging the uptake of sport and getting the message out there that these sports are for absolutely everyone. So, like what you're saying, happy to push that forward.
Thank you. Right, I think we've no further comments or questions, so all in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That is carried. We're going to move on to agenda item 10 now, which is to consider a report detailing changes for the January 2022 council meeting and council procedure rules to enable the Mayor of West Yorkshire to attend a meeting. So is the report moved? Is the report seconded? Are there any questions in relation to the report? Lovely. Any comments? All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Agenda item 11 is to do with any questions made by members. One question has been submitted with the required notice given. Councillor Ferguson has asked a question to the Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder for Climate Change and the Environment. Councillor Hemingway, would you please reply to the question from Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm grateful to Councillor Ferguson for her interest in the Council's biodiversity work and on wildflowers in particular. We know it has huge benefits for people and nature, and I can confirm that I'm very happy to look at the location she's identified for potential wildflower planting. I've always said in this chamber and briefings to members, if you have specific sites in mind for tree planting and wildflower planting, let me know and we will ensure that they're fairly considered. On the second part of the question, I can also confirm we have extensive plans to support wildflower planting and also the naturalisation of areas to allow wildflowers to come through in the next year. We doubled the number of wildflower pilot sites last year. That will increase again with 3 large-scale wildflower meadows to be created in parks. As part of our ecological crisis declaration, we're also looking to allow more areas to naturalise, including roadside verges where it's safe to do so, and we're phasing out the use of harmful pesticides. We want to create pollinator corridors to link urban and rural green spaces, and wildflowers will obviously be a key part of this. For the larger sites, signage will be created to explain the reason for the sites not being mown more frequently, to explain some of the biodiversity and wildflowers on site, and to help educate residents and children who may be interested. On the last part of the question as well, I can confirm that we're very happy to support an education and information sharing campaign around this issue. We already work very closely with schools in the White Rose Forest, and there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't work with schools on wildflower planting, as far as I'm concerned as well, whether it's public hotels or any shop buildings, wherever people can support it. So I think what might be useful, Councillor, is if we need to discuss this further and see how we can implement it in your area.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Ferguson, is the question, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Councillor Henry, for responding to my question. And I'd just like to ask if we could, across the district, all of us, have some active initiatives where we encourage our residents to engage in rewilding in their, in their own spaces, because it's sometimes the smaller things that can make the bigger differences, and we can all do that. And we can all encourage the residents in our wards to do that, so I'd like to have that to my question as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that suggestion, Jackie. I think that's a great idea. There are lots of simple steps we can take, whether it's composting or putting more wildflowers in your garden. So, yeah, very happy to look at that and do this right campaign.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Before we move on to agenda item 12, we're going to take a short recess for 10 minutes to give the chamber time to go through. So, if there's coffee and tea available outside, and if you can get back in the chamber for 2:10, 3:10. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, council members, please do stand across the mayor.
Please be seated. We're moving on to agenda item 12, which is the final agenda item, which is to consider motions proposed by members. 3 motions were originally received, but one has now been withdrawn. The first motion is from Councillor Swift. Would you please move your motion to council?
Thank you, Madam Kevin Swift, Wakefield West. Madam the issue of local government finance has long been regarded as something that A was in need of reform, but B was always put in the too difficult box. And that's been the case for a very long time. But what happened 10 years ago, and what this motion is primarily about, is the way in which, against the background of a difficult and often unsatisfactory means of local government finance, that the way in which it was applied, first of all by the coalition government, and then by the straight Conservative government since then, has actually made the situation very, very much worse. It's turned a difficult tax into one that's it's not socially fair, in that it binds more heavily on people who are not very well off. It's not very efficient, particularly in respect to the business tax situation, where its shortcomings, I think, have been very well ventilated in the last 12 months. And it's not efficient in the sense that it doesn't actually deliver proper funding to enable local government services to be properly done. Now, I think an awful lot of people in the public would fairly straightforwardly equate the services that they receive with actual council tax they pay. And I think that's not an unreasonable view. The actual reality, though, has been that, certainly for the best part of a century now, that it was traditional for central government to carry a fairly significant part of the cost by direct grant from the central government to the individual local authorities. But it wasn't a particularly transparent system. I think that's one reason why it's not particularly well known and well understood. And the formula that we used were always quite mystifying, and they served additionally to make it quite complex and difficult to see. But underlying it, there was a rough and ready pattern of where the central government grant took account, first of all, of the needs, the differing needs of different localities, and also took account of what used to be called resources, used to be done in terms of rateable value, but which again roughly reflected the levels of wealth both of individuals and of localities. And different areas of the country got different levels of central government grant. Now, that situation was first altered for the worse by the introduction of the poll tax, quickly succeeded by council tax, when the poll tax literally brought people out onto the streets. But starting then, first of all, there was the breach with the allocation of resources according to need, and the breach of allocation of resources according to actually the wealth of different areas, and both of those were weakened. But from 2010, what we then got was not only cuts in the amounts, which was very deliberately intended, but we also got from 2010 further sharp changes in the formula, which meant that areas of the country that really weren't that badly off started to do rather better. The one that was always used was Cameron's own constituency of Cotswold, which did spectacularly well. But also at that same time, the amounts were reduced, the formula was tweaked, but also the government set out a very clear, Osborne was Chancellor then, set out a very clear programme, a very clear intention that they would actually progressively reduce the central government contribution, placing a progressively bigger burden on council tax and to some extent the business tax. And the local business tax isn't a very satisfactory tax either, in a different way. So we've reached a situation where in total the central government contribution has gone down by 16 billion. And partially making up the gap is a 10 billion increase in the amount of council tax paid. So we've got an increased burden, and it tends to fall, it's what they call a regressive tax. Is council tax. It tends to fall most heavily on people who are less well off. Probably the people who are absolutely least well off get some measure of relief. But it's what I think Billy Van used to refer to as the squeezed middle that perhaps get most heavily affected by the council tax. So we've got a situation where something's neither fair nor is it efficient in raising the funds, and nor is it beneficial in terms of the way the economy functions. Am I coming up clear?
Councillor Swift, can you move to your motion, please?
I've got how long, sorry?
So can you sum up for us, please?
No, that's fine, Chair. Madam.
Is the motion seconded?
I'll second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Mitchell, do you wish to form a speaking or reserve your right to speak later in the debate?
Speak after the
Okay. Councillor Stansby has submitted an amendment to the motion. The amendment has been circulated to members prior to the meeting. Councillor Stansby, would you please introduce your amendment?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We looked at this motion and we were a little bit confused. There's two things in my concern. Death and taxes. Nobody likes paying taxes, and to be honest, I don't think anybody's too keen on the other one either. Neither are deemed to be fair. You know, you mentioned the sharing of taxes between government and local councils in your motion, but the Localism Act of 2011 gave powers to local government and the ability to raise your own funds, and that was agreed by the local councils at the time. And that's why we've got a discrepancy. That's why. So yes, our share of funding from the central pot went down, and that's why better off areas do get more money, because that was in the agreement back in 2011 and people signed up to that. And in return, we got more say over what we spent that money on and how we raised that. So, are you suggesting we reverse this act? You know, you mentioned about the government service, funding the COVID services. I think we've done a fantastic job of funding council COVID services. It just seems a little bit spurious to have a go at that, but at some point we're going to have to pay that back. We're going to have to pay for all that funding during the COVID pandemic. It's just a basic law of taxes. So what we would like to know is what exactly are you proposing replaces the current system, because I was out on the streets with demonstrating against the poll tax. Nobody thought that was a fair tax. So what is fair? What is your proposal? We need more detail. We can't just say, oh, let's tax the rich, because the rich will just leave. They'll leave the country, and there'll be nobody left to tax. So what exactly do you propose we do instead? My accountant colleagues have spent years studying taxation and trying to work out all the rules and regulations. So yes, maybe we could simplify the systems. But yeah, we need more info. There's nothing meaty in this motion at all. We need more explanation, and we need to know what your ideas are, and we just want to, you put the motion forward, so we're asking you how you would update the local taxation system to make it, in your words, democratic and fair.
Is the amendment seconded? Second. The seconded the motion. Would you like to exercise your right to reply now? Or
I'd just like to say that I echo what Councillor Stansby says. I would like to know what we're going to be changing it to before I can understand what I need to do about it. Thank you.
We will now take the amendment to the vote. To clarify, this is to determine whether the amendment from Councillor Stansby should become the new substantive motion. Please, all those in favour of the amendment show. All those against?
Point of order, Chair. Are we not supposed to debate the amendment first?
I will take legal advice. 1 moment.
Certainly there's provision in the rules to debate the amendment. I would, however, remind all members that what you're debating is the amendment rather than the question that is being posed by the amendment, if you can see the difference. So if members do wish to speak for or against the amendment, then that is within the rules.
Can I ask, Madam Chair, please? Is this an amendment or is this a question from Councillor Stans? Because that's what it came across as she wanted clarity.
All right. 1 moment, Councillor King. We'll get clarity on that.
Within the rules, it can only be dealt with as an amendment to the motion, not as a question to be asked today. So if the amendment is put and carried and becomes a substantive motion and then is passed, the effect of that would be for the group to come back with the answer to the question. It is not up for debate today.
So let me just clarify this. If I vote against supporting the amendment, I'm voting against her asking a question, which you can ask later anyway. Is that right? She's confused. I'm confused. I think I'd have to stay in the open and say this.
Councillor Stanley, would you like to clarify? I think what we're saying is you can't ask a question to the motion.
Yes.
What you need to be doing is adding to that motion that's been proposed. Asking questions.
So the point of the amendment is that we don't feel that there is enough information in the original motion to enable us to debate the motion today and to vote on it. There just isn't enough information. So we feel that we're calling, the amendment says that we're calling on the Labour group to inform the council how they would update the local taxation system to make it democratic, sufficient, efficient.
Right, let's listen to legal.
Okay, so in terms of what you've just said, Councillor Stansby, if your group feels there is insufficient information to be able to debate this motion that's before council as a whole, you can put that forward as an amendment. And then what would probably be the best way to deal with it if the amendment were to be carried would be to bring the motion back next time with the further information on, then it can be debated. If, however, your group is saying that you do not feel that you as a group have got enough information, then the appropriate way to deal with it is not an amendment but to vote against the motion.
No, we just don't feel that there's enough information in these original motions to debate and vote.
So if any member wishes to address that question as whether there is sufficient information before council today to deal with the motion, then that is something that you can speak on within the rules. If, however, council feels that the best way to deal with the amendment is to vote on it, then we can move straight to the vote.
Councillor Rowley, so
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, the last part of the resolution says council is called on government to restore adequate support for services and update the local taxation system to make it democratic, efficient and fair. It's not the onus on us to do that. It's what we're asking is that government actually look at it again and say it cannot be fair if we're having to make cuts we have in Wakefield at the same time as The only way we can restore it is putting the council tax up to an incredible level that means it's unaffordable for most people. And surely that in itself says we're asking the government to come back with something that's democratic and fair, not for us to suggest it. So I don't understand why there's a question when in fact we're putting the onus on the government to come back with some form of consultation.
Right, so if anybody else wants to speak for or against the amendment, I now have the opportunity to do so. If not, we're then going to take it to the vote. Councillor King.
Can I just quickly say, the point being is that whether we know why it was shifted onto council tax, it was taken away from blaming the government for putting the tax up and putting it onto local government. We know why they did it, but what we're saying, what Kevin's point is that we're saying we need to revisit that with the
Yes,
but the question of quality to the
what we're doing now is we're saying, does anybody want to debate the amendment? Yes. No. Or do you want to move to vote? Move to vote. So those in favour of the amendment by Councillor Stansby, please show your hands. Those against the amendment by Councillor Stansby. So that has fallen. We will now move back to the original motion. Does anybody wish to speak on the original motion? Councillor Gordon.
What an absolute mess of a motion. Can I just say, when we put things to this council, this is one of the things that is really, really disparaging to everyone out there across this council, is that we put things like this that don't actually do anything locally. This motion calls on the government to do something that doesn't specify what it is, which is what I believe the point of the Conservative amendment was trying to address. The point is, if we can't just throw his hands up in the air and go, oh, we want more money, well, how much do you want? How are you going to make it fairer? How are you going to make it democratic? How are you going to make it efficient? This motion is, I agree with it. I completely agree with the sentiment. Council tax is regressive. I think we've muddied far too many issues into one motion out of probably a panic of just putting something down to look like you're all doing something. And I think the point is muddying council tax with national insurance, with business rates, it just stinks of an absolute flap of a council motion that doesn't actually tell anyone or actually say what you would do differently. I belong to a party of Liberal Democrats that have policies on some of these issues that are clear and are laid out, like land value tax, as opposed to some of these things mentioned in here. To me, this is just something that I don't really understand why we're here, why we're debating it, when actually we could be, dealing with proper issues that affect people directly. This is, again, the motions that we've put forward have been things like, deep fish or something like goldfish, which admittedly was said to be fiddling while we're birds. It was still something that this council would tangibly do, though. Whereas this is something that's not within our control, is screaming into the void, and quite frankly, a waste of council time.
Councillor Lowood, did you have a...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm relieved. I was relieved not to hear Councillor Gordon mention local income taxes and things like that, because that's why I thought it was going there. Graduated tax systems have been around for about 110 years. It was the 1911 budget where it sort of started. And the problem with, it's all very well saying that, this is regressive and that's progressive and all the rest of it, but the bottom line is that there needs to be a connection between what people pay in taxes and what they vote for. And that's what you've got over there don't want. That's what you don't want, right? Now, the thing is, there was a guy called Mencken, Henry Louis Mencken, who once said, people should feel what they vote for and they should get it good and hard. And he's right. If you want to spend money and you want to vote for the council to spend money, then you should pay for it. And what graduated tax systems do is allow you to vote for more spending while you're never going to pay for it. And that's really what we're getting at here. And that's why you want to put the onus on central government, who are still going to take it out of my pocket, whether you take it out of my pocket at town hall, or whether the government takes it out of my pocket through income taxes or whatever taxes. This is the problem that the disconnect between what people vote for and what they feel in their pocket. There should be a link. Otherwise, people go around voting for more and more spending, safe in the comfort they're never going to have to pay for it. And I should point out while we're here, the 35% of Britain's tax you take is paid by 1% of the public, and the bottom 15% of people in this country pay just 1% of the tax take. So, you know, how fair do you want it? How fair do you want it? Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak on the motion? Councillor Rowland.
I think we can always be critical of resolutions and they will never be perfect, but if we want to stick to the goldfish debate, then I suppose that's fine. That doesn't really affect council tax as such. What this resolution is asking, I believe, is that we actually ask government to look again and consult all the local authorities on a fairer system. And I acknowledge fully that people locally want to pay less, they don't know what they're contributing to. But over my many years as a councillor, what's actually happened is that the demand has increased and the money we've got have actually decreased. We've got a situation where 60% of our budget as a council is spent on children and adults, and yet it only benefits 5% of our population. So if you ask the average person if they want to pay the council tax to contribute to the care of children or the care of sort of vulnerable adults, they'd probably say, well, I prefer if it was a bit lower and it doesn't really affect me because I have no children at school and I have no children in care and I've no elderly relatives or nobody in a wheelchair or whatever. You could go on endlessly. The whole thing about council tax is it's supposed to be communal and we actually contribute to the more vulnerable in our communities and we need to sell that. But somehow we need to get over that the government needs to look and overhaul the whole taxation system. We've seen the ludicrous situation of national insurance being actually charged now to the poorest people in the community. And it's all right, these statistics about 1% not paying tax, or pay the overall more
Exactly,
tax.
probably.
Yeah, but the problem with it is that the very wealthy are paying next to nothing. They're walking away from it by evasion, by every possible means. And we see that time and time again. And the wealth of this country is held by a small minority of people. And somehow that needs to be redistributed so that local authorities are fairly funded.
Councillor Akbar.
I pay a hell of a lot of taxes and I'd love not to be able to. I've read the motion, I'm a bit confused, I don't think it's worth the paper it's written on. I mirror what Councillor Gordon said, we're wasting time. I don't think anyone's going to give a toss about what this paper says. I think if you want to address an issue, you need to put forward a solution, not just say here's a problem. And this is a national issue where many economical experts, lawyers, etc. spend a lot of time looking at. It's no good just sending a piece of paper saying, can we sort this out? There's a school in my ward in College Grove called Pinders Primary. I think if the Labour Party went there and they went to the Year 2 students, they'd be able to put together a better motion and perhaps find a solution.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do support this motion. Local government has been financed in the main by central government. Central government providing the money. Local taxation, which was in its day raised and then followed by a brief period of time by the community charge the poll tax, as it was commonly, and now by the council tax, is a contribution towards local government finance. It's not a service charge. But what's happened recently, as the councillor Stansby's pointed out, is that there's been more and more demand for more local government input financially and less central government input. The old system, the system as it is now, which is going out, had two benefits. The first benefit, the greatest benefit, was that poorer areas and areas such as Wakefield district benefited, while richer areas from government finance. So that there was a union out, so make sure that there was adequate services The second advantage of the system, which is now going away because we've seen in recent times the burden of income tax has been moved on to value-added tax, which people, even people who don't pay income tax because they're not earning enough money to pay. And that would be to say that at least there was some sort of idea that you pay according to your means towards local government. But that's going away gradually. What this says is exactly this. What this resolution says is areas like Wakefield are losing out from these changes of finance which is coming about. More and more, we're expecting more and more to pay for the services which used to be paid for by central government, but we don't have the money in this area, in this district, we don't have the money to do that. It might be areas which do have the money, where people are well off and can afford it, but it doesn't affect, but it doesn't benefit areas like the district. And that's why we do need to look at it, and we do need to send a message to central government to say, can you look at this? Can you look and making sure that Wakefield District and the people of Wakefield District have adequate finance for the local services which they deserve, as well as other districts which can afford to provide a local government. And that's why I support this resolution.
Councillor Kitchen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. That's just a comment, really. With respect to everybody in this chamber, we ask what's fair. Well, in my opinion, what was fair and what we need to ask this government is to give us back, since 2010, some of the monies that they've taken from us that we could already help the struggling families, the working families, take some burden from them that are already paying the tax. That's fair. That's what I'd like to ask this government. Thank you.
Councillor Ames.
What we're actually discussing here is how we are spending other people's money. And that's the crux of it. We've got to take more care on how we spend it. I hate to keep bringing up the Sandal Magna project.
Councillor Keith.
Sorry, that ended quicker than I was expecting. So, I heard somebody say on television the other day that what people, the public are wanting is a European level of public services available, but a US level of taxation to pay for it. And that's quite true. People's expectation level has grown and the income is diminishing. We all know what it used to be. Tony, you're 100% right. It used to come from central government. And the coalition, may I remind the Liberal Democrats, who were invited into the meeting to come as the junior partners, sat and watched this happen, by the way, when the Conservatives then slashed budgets or moved the goalposts and put more onus upon certain councils, particularly Labour councils, to raise money in their own name, as Councillor Roberts quite rightly said. He's saying he's trying to run away from raising the money and a tax and spend issue. But, Madam Mayor, we've got into a situation where not only Labour councillors have been going to the wall and put into administration, but some of the shire counties that are Conservative have been in the same situation. I support this motion because there is a review desperately needed to say that what we've got at the moment barely works, and if we don't adjust things, more and more of these councils will be failing to meet the expectation level that's going one way and the taxation level that's coming down the other way. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Headway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I support this motion very much along the lines of what Councillor Keith has just said. I think this is a tax system that hasn't been fundamentally reviewed for decades. The review is long overdue and successive governments have fairness conducted. But I think what Councillor Sanders said earlier, presenting the localism act as some beneficent agreement that all parties wanted to be a part of, it was a piece of legislation by the coalition government that resulted in a massive cut in funding for our area that saw funding allocated away from need and deprivation to shire counties, as Councillor Swift said earlier, which was absolutely devastating for our communities. So I do think our residents will want us to debate something that has seen local services suffer as a result, that's seen £200 million in cuts. to our budgets from central government. And yet again, we get the benches opposite that, oh, experts and tax lawyers know more about this than we do, that we don't have the right to have an opinion on this. Well, they've designed a pretty awful system as it is, and we are elected by the people to have a view on these matters, so I fundamentally disagree with that assertion and support this excellent motion.
Councillor Mitchell, as secondary the motion, you reserved your right to speak. Would you like to speak now?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to say too much. How Wakefield had a great funds and love taxation, but however, that has a subject to understand, not just something you're actually paying. Like most people, they don't like tax, no one does, but we realise that it's needed. The thing that makes me very angry about council tax is that it's based on house values of 30 years ago. And if you look, the band days for houses up to 40,000. I had a good look on Wakefield the other day, and there isn't a house anywhere in Wakefield district for £40,000. Cheapest I could find was 60,000, which is going for auction. But well, like one of these houses you find at home under the hammer, you know, need a hell of a lot of money into it. Quite a normal 3-bedroom, 4 council house in Luxon, where perfectly good houses are selling something like £170,000. It's not, the values are absolutely reasonable. Now, whereas people like me who live in an older house, we're beneficial from it somewhere or other out of the family, and don't know how, but we are. But new builds, on new build estate particularly, really lose out. And the people who are in my constituent, in my ward, Luxon and Florence, it's a very nice new build estate. Went to see one of the constituents there, and she happened to mention, just a small chit chat, that she paid Band H council tax. That's the highest council tax there is. It's based on homes that value over 320,000, which certainly is a decent home, but it's not excessive, it's not enormous, it's not outrageous. And anybody living in one of these homes is not necessarily a millionaire or anything like it. Yet they're going to pay the maximum rate of council tax. Where again, looking at right move, there are some very nice houses in the Wakefield district, $500,000, $1 million plus, sitting on acres of land and so on, that feature frequently in the Wakefield Express. There's no way that's fair. That just isn't fair. That somebody who bought one of these new build houses is going to pay maximum council tax, whereas if you were lucky enough to buy one across the road, which is a much older house, they probably, and possibly even pay more for it, will probably pay less in council tax. Is the fact the system is 30 years old, based on house values which have no relevance whatsoever to life today, that makes it unfair, and is creating resentment. Just, or it's one of these little niggly things. It just adds to a general feeling you get from a lot of people of resentment. Of you feel, you work hard not to pay more than anybody else, you try hard to go history all the way through. And I know from seeing some Facebook posts with that, and other people have said, again, living in new build estates, that they're paying a hell of a lot more for council tax than the equivalent type of house had they only been around 10 years earlier or a portion of their house. So this isn't fair, and that needs to be adjusted. And bands need to be widened to give you 26 letters of the alphabet, we're only using 8 of them. You know, you could do it that way, or you could just have a much wider band and still keep it into 8 divisions. But I don't think anybody now can possibly see the maximum tax, council tax on houses worth about 320,000 is actually fair, sensible, democratic, or in any way vaguely efficient. It does need to change, it needs to change desperately. And as a lot of people have councils are saying it. I mean, heard this talked about 10 years ago, or more, you know, exactly completely out of filter. And nobody's prepared, or no government prepared to do it. Now, if they let me, I'd be happy to work out balance and things for you, but they probably won't. So it's not that difficult, it's just a question of applying yourself to get on with it, and make everything a bit easier, and make it that bit more fair, and make it seem more importantly, so it seems to be fair. And I think that's really all I'm going to say now, because pretty much everything else has been said. But that's what it's about. It's about asking for a proper review of a system which is very old, outdated, and just no longer works. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Swift, just move with the motion. Do you wish to reply before I take the motion to approve?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to first of all respond to the point that was made by Councillor Holden when he said about the fact that the effect of moving things away from council tax would be to increase the amount that were paid on graduated taxes such as income tax. Now, he quite clearly thought that was a bad idea. He thought it was a bad idea because it was graduated. We're going back to the kind of Thatcherite principle that underlay the original poll tax, where everybody paid the same. And the same argument was used that Councillor Hogan has just used, i.e. that if everybody had to pay the same for the services they received, then that would make them more likely to kind of, to vote against them when it came to elections, and that it would make them more accountable. Now, it is an accepted principle, almost universally accepted anyway, that we do actually have graduated systems of taxation to pay for the services that we use, the public services. Come next year, everybody not just in Wakefield will get their council tax bills, and people will, as I said, equate in large measure the council tax bill they receive with the council services they receive. And they will be aware that over many, many years, the services that they receive have been squeezed, they've been under pressure, but at the same time, the council tax they pay has continued to rise. And it's this sleight of hand that we're concerned about, that people are finding that they pay more and get less. But in fact, it's because of the government removing the central grant. And that's the fundamental thing. That this shift from systems of taxation, the graduated systems that Councillor Hogan doesn't like, that to move the burden from graduated systems onto very much less graduated and much more regressive systems. And that's what this is about. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We will now take the original motion to the vote. Please show all those in favour of the original motion. All those against? All those abstentions? That is carried. The second and last motion on the agenda is from Councillor Fishwick. Would you please move your motion to council?
Thank you. The importance of our local towns and villages having a Christmas tree to raise community spirit and morale at Christmas time is a time-honoured tradition that local residents have come to greatly appreciate and support. A local Christmas tree in our towns and villages brings people and communities together. However, this council permits costs charged by Wakefield Council to our parish councils and the provisions of these Christmas trees. I would like to ask officers to prepare a report for the council looking into our procurement policy with regard to the purchase of these trees, with a view to driving down the overall cost and achieving better value for money for the taxpayer. I believe that the cost of these trees that go in our villages is to the tune of £2,200 per tree plus VAT. That's for every village within the district. I'd like to know how many trees have been purchased, and obviously additional costs of adding lighting and obviously fixing it to the main system, which I agree with health and safety has to be carried out. I would also like to ask where the trees have been purchased from, and are we actually informative with the carbon footprint that Councillor Jack Hemingway speaks about? Thank you.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Are they rhetorical questions? Because you're not meant to ask questions when you're delivering a motion. I don't understand that.
Sorry.
Gillian?
The motion is as printed in the paper, and that's the only thing that council is debating at the moment. Councillor Fishwick, if you have other questions, you have a route to be able to put those direct via email to the cabinet member, or you can put them as questions on notice at next council.
So,
I don't apologise.
is the motion that is printed in the book seconded? Councillor Stocker? As seconded the motion, do you wish to speak now, or is there your right to speak later? Councillor Piper, there's been an amendment to the motion that's printed in the book. The amendment has been circulated to members prior to the meeting. Councillor Piper, would you please introduce your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Come to agree more with Councillor Fishwick about the importance of Christmas trees in our communities. They're vital at this time of year. This Victorian tradition now represents to most people the true British tradition of Christmas. When Christmas lights switch on is often seen as the start of the festive season, bringing together communities,
people from all walks of life, cross-generational, young and old, and from other faiths. So I may be able to answer some of the supplementary questions that Simon's asked. So let's just think about the 22-foot tree that we provide. Before I do that, let me just say, you don't have to buy the tree from the council. You can get them from other sources if you so wish. But the trees that we provide are UK grown, from an ethical source, from a sustainable forest. And for £2,000 plus VAT, this is what you get. Amazing tree, fully dressed in energy efficient LED lighting, designed to operate in all types of British weather. Delivery to site on the back of a suitable vehicle with complex lifting equipment, as a 22-foot tree can weigh up to half a tonne. The tree is installed on site using specialist lifting equipment connected to electricity supply, as you asked, by a qualified electrician. 24/7 call out through the engine help desk should the tree need attention due to vandalism, third-party damage or extreme weather conditions, perhaps like the ones that we experienced on Friday night and Saturday morning, and ongoing maintenance of that tree well into the new year. Then after the festive season is complete, the tree is removed, again using specialist lifting equipment, and transported back to site for environmental disposal. And then on top of all of that, we have to provide a suitable level of public liability insurance to ensure that should something untoward happen, that all the community groups are covered. And we provide that level of public liability to over £10 million per tree. And I do recognise that £2,000 seems a lot of money, but when you consider what you get for that money, is it really excessive? And just as an aside, if you were to move into Google research, you'll see that there's many incidents up and down the country where journalists have made inquiries about trees, and they end up costing significantly more. However, as I said before, we do have lots of other options available, and towns and parish councils and community groups can, if they wish, install their own trees, and I understand a few of them do, but the vast majority see the benefits of using the council service. Other options are available that are not always suitable. In my own ward, I have helped provide 2 root ball tree. One's been very successful and is growing and flourishing. The second one hasn't fared so well, it died. However, the team are more than willing to discuss any requirements for the current and future trees. So, ask the questions of the team and they will help what we can. And with that, Madam Mayor, I move my amendment to the motion.
What's this?
Is the amendment seconded?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Do you wish to formally speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I'll speak now, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, in seconding this amendment, I think it's important to make it clear, as Councillor Byford's done, the costs associated with the provision of the Christmas trees in community settings, as the original motions suggest, it isn't just for the tree, it's actually for all the things that you get associated with it, the dressing, the provision, putting it in place, the removal, the ongoing maintenance, the insurance, to actually make sure that tree looks its best, the community is protected, that will actually be visiting the tree. So I think in all fairness, I think with this in mind, Madam Mayor, I second this amendment.
Does any member wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Isherwood.
I feel like shouting that. I don't want to be able to do it, but I won't. As a parish council in Featherstone, we've got numerous streets. And yeah, it is expensive. It is expensive. The longer we get from the council, it is expensive. But we didn't do that. We shopped around Margaret, Clyde, so to see if we could get a better deal for a team, and we could. But the trouble is, we didn't get the guarantees that we wanted to get to the council. That was the problem. I know the parish council not far away from me decided to go down that road. And what we got, well, just stagnant flow with a few epoxy lights on it. It certainly didn't do the job as far as I was concerned. So the decision we took as a town council, not parish council, as a town council was that we feel in safe hands and the guarantees are all there. So we went along with the council suppliers. And to be honest with you, we've never had a problem when lights were dropping off and kids have pulled them off, let's face it, they do. I think it's Andy that does it anyway, but Andy come out almost a week.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. He's not speaking to the amendment, he's just waffling on.
Mr. Hunt.
Mr. Hunt, I've been waffling on all afternoon, so I'm allowed to waffle if you don't waffle. So, I'm speaking to the amendment that I think we should actually support, because about 11 we'll see him coming in first goes, but thank you.
Right, before anybody else speaks on the amendment, this is what the amendment says, because I know we're all getting a little bit confused today. To ask officers to prepare a report for councillors with regards to the purchase of these trees, so that all councillors are aware of how best to drive down the overall cost and achieve better value for money for the taxpayer. So this is what we're debating at this moment in time, which is the amendment that Councillor Byford has put forward. So would anybody else like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Fishwood, what are you saying? I can't hear you.
All I asked for was a report, when it's the story, I just wanted a report, that's all. Full breakdown of the costs.
Councillor Fishwood, are you accepting this amendment that Councillor Byford has put forward to agree to write a report on the cost of trees for all councillors to be made aware, so that we can all make informed choices?
Yes, I am.
So that now becomes a substantive motion. So can we, it's been a very confusing day today, not for you, not just for you, but for me as well. So, what we're now doing, now that Councillor Fishwick has agreed the amendment, which now becomes a substantive report, does anybody wish to speak on it? Councillor Keith? Just go and move to the vote. Councillor Keith, now we've got to move to the vote. Is that a formal closure of the debate? Whoever said that? I think Councillor... Is that seconded? Right. We are going to move to the new amended motion to the vote. All those in favour, please show your hands. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Oh, you're going to make me rain. So, colleagues, that was the last item on the agenda. Thank you all for your attendance. Can I remind members that the next meeting of council will be held on the 12th of January. There is mince pies in the parlour if anybody wants to come along. And I now declare that meeting closed. Thank you.